is up, you guys? I'm Cassie, and today we're talking training mistakes and what not to do in the gym, and then we're going to discuss proper form and ways to fix those mistakes. So if you're interested in learning what not to do in the gym, a little bit about proper form, or you just want to know what makes me absolutely cringe when I see it in the gym, then go ahead and hit subscribe and keep on watching. Let's get into it. Okay, so I want to start off talking about cardio machines and what not to do when doing your cardio. The first thing that comes to mind is hanging all of your weight in your upper body on the machine and tiptoeing away. So on a treadmill, it would be hanging on the back of the machine, putting the incline all the way up, hanging, doing the zombie thing, and just tiptoeing like little Flintstone on the treadmill. That is not going to make you see the most benefits that you could out of cardio. Another thing would be on the stairs, if you're hunching over, resting all of your weight on the top of the machine and then barely having any weight down in your legs pressing up on those stairs. That is not the point of the stair climber, and that's not how you would climb stairs in real life. So that's not how you should be climbing stairs in the gym. Another thing that I see very commonly on the treadmill is people using the handrails to press up all their weight in their upper body, resting all that weight in your shoulders and in your neck area, and then tiptoeing along on the machine. So all of these things are shifting your weight from your lower body to your upper body, and that is taking the point out of cardio. It is to get our heart rate up, and you might start sweating while you're hunching over the stairs, but you're not going to get those maximum benefits. And you're also putting yourself at risk of injury by not using proper form and not using the machine the way that it's supposed to be used. There's a couple more things when it comes to cardio that I want you to be aware of. One is to not expect the stats of your cardio machine to be medically sound advice. Your cardio equipment is exercise equipment. It is not medical equipment. So that is something to definitely keep in mind. If you are concerned about your heart rate levels and what you should be at while you're using a cardio machine, I definitely recommend you talk to a professional trainer or doctor who can give you sound medical advice. Another thing that I hear a lot of people talk about is that they have knee pain, but they're doing the treadmill multiple times a week, 20 or so minutes a day. And the treadmill is not something that I would recommend off the bat for someone that has knee pain. I would definitely suggest checking out a cardio machine such as the Arc Trainer, which is similar to the elliptical. It's just no arms, just legs, or the elliptical, which are both designed to be easier on the joints, the knees and the ankles, and also the lower back. So if you do have knee pain, I would not suggest the treadmill being your one and only source of cardio. I would definitely recommend checking out the other machines, see what feels good. I like to think that the Arc Trainer feels like you're trudging through water, and it's the only machine in the gym that does have incline and resistance available to use simultaneously, so that's really cool too. I would definitely recommend checking out the Arc Trainer if you have knee pain, please. Great. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of proper form and ways to fix your treadmill or cardio experience to maximize your benefits and to prevent you from injuring yourself or to protect those injuries that you already have. So when it comes to our bodies, there are 4 different areas that I hear the most often are injured, which would be shoulders, neck, back, and knees. So you want to keep those things in mind while you're using any equipment, but we really want to protect those areas and make sure that we are using proper form to make sure that we're not hurting ourselves or putting ourselves at risk. So first off, you want to think about keeping your shoulders down and back, chest is nice and tall, your shoulders are stacked on top of your hips, and your abs are engaged. So when we talk about your core being engaged, we don't necessarily mean sucking it in. It's more like you are anticipating a punch. So your stomach is nice and tight, your abs are engaged, they're tight, anybody could punch you and you're ready for it. That's how you should be the entire time you're doing your cardio. And if you're doing your cardio, which this happens to me frequently, I'll be running along on the street or whatever, and I start to get bored, and then I go through my checklist. Are my shoulders down and back? Am I standing up nice and tall? Do I have my core engaged? And you will notice that it does take some of the pressure off of your lower back. It does make the work a little bit easier on your legs because you are using that strength from your core to fuel the rest of your workout. So next time you do your cardio, make sure every single second that you get bored or you start wandering in thought, think, are my abs engaged? And it will make a huge difference in your core strength in general and in your cardio workout experience as well. Okay, so let's talk about strength equipment, cables, and free weights. You never want to go too heavy with your weight that it makes you compromise your form. So if you are able to lift a 20-pound dumbbell, however, it makes your whole body shift over, I hate to break it to you, but you cannot lift a 20-pound dumbbell. You have to be able to maintain proper form, do the correct movement to get the maximum benefits out of it and to not hurt yourself. Another thing that I see commonly is people underestimating how much weight they can lift and flailing around. It's so light, they're just doing their thing, not a care in the world. And that, again, is not going to give you the maximum benefits. If you are going for more of a toning, lightweight, pulsing action, we're talking about a different story. But in general, in this video today, we are just talking about specifically in your run-of-the-mill, everyday gym that anyone could access and have a membership for. We're not talking CrossFit, we're not talking Pilates, we're not talking heavy man competitions. This is general fitness information. Disclaimer in the middle of the video. Great. Another thing that I see quite often in the gym, especially when it comes to the curl machine and older gentlemen, is not fully extending your movements. So if we're talking about that curl machine, to engage that bicep muscle and get the maximum benefits out of that machine, you want to fully extend out and curl all the way in. A lot of times I see this and I think, why isn't he in a Pilates class pulsing his little heart out? Because that is not going to get him the maximum benefits out of that curl machine. You have to do full extensions to get full benefits. There's a couple more things that I want to lightly touch on when I see minimal reps, somebody coming up to a strength machine, doing maybe 3 curls and then hitting the road. Locking your joints, knees locked and elbows locked when you're fully extending your movements. You still want to keep a soft elbow, soft knee to prevent injury there. And the last thing I want to talk about is mind elsewhere training. So when you come to the gym and your mind is elsewhere, you're not going to get as many benefits as you would if you're thinking about what you're doing in that moment. If I think about my tricep and engaging that muscle and getting that squeeze at the top, I'm going to get more out of it than if I'm thinking about last week's episode of Dawson's Creek and I'm just kind of going through the motions. If you just go through the motions, that's not enough. I hate to say it, but it's not enough. You have to want it, you have to think about it, and you have to engage your mind while you're engaging that muscle to get maximum benefits out of it. So how do we fix some of these issues that I brought up? First, let's talk about addressing the weight too heavy or too light situation. So when it comes to general training, if you want to be able to do 3 sets of 10 reps with a short break in between, you want to pick a weight that you feel confident that you can complete those 3 sets of 10 at that standard weight. I know that there are training techniques where you up your weight or lower your weight, but we're talking in general right now, 3 sets of 10, kind of a workout. So you want to think about using or picking a weight that the first set of 10 reps is pretty doable, right? You feel confident, you feel strong. Second set is going to get a little bit more challenging. By your 8th, 9th, 10th rep, you're really going to start feeling it. And then by the time you take your short break and get to your 3rd set of 10, it should be pretty challenging. It should, by the end of it, be real tough because we're trying to grow that muscle, right? So you want to use weight that is challenging for yourself, but you're still capable of completing the action using that weight. You want to pick a weight that you feel confident you can complete whatever set or reps that you have set in your mind without adjusting the weight. So again, let's talk about proper form while using strength equipment or weightlifting. We again want to think about having our shoulders down and back. Chest is nice and tall. Shoulders are stacked on top of the hips, and your neck is nice and neutral. If we're talking bent over movements, such as a bent over row or a bent over tricep kickback, your neck should still be neutral with your spine. So you wouldn't want to bend over and strain your neck to look up because then you're just putting pressure on your neck. You always want your gaze to be where your body is pointing toward. Again, you want to think about keeping those abs engaged. If you're doing an Arnold press, just here like this, you might get a little bit more wobbly than if you have your core engaged, shoulders down and back, chest is high, and I'm pressing here. A lot of that pressure is in my abs and not in my shoulder. Even though we're doing the shoulder work, you're still helping yourself out by keeping those abs engaged and maintaining proper form. Again, we want to think about keeping our elbows and knees soft. And even when you're fully extending, you're not locking that elbow out. You're going nice and slow and soft and then pulling it back in. Okay, let's talk a little bit about foot placement, which I think is really fun and cool and something that people don't really think about or worry about during their workouts, but I think it could really help you to maximize your benefits and your results in the gym. So when it comes to foot placement, you want to think about what position you can put yourself in where you can maximize your effort into that one specific muscle that you are trying to work at that time. So if you are seated on a bench, you are giving yourself an opportunity to put more focus on the muscle group that you are trying to work, and you're using a little bit more core. But in general, you want to keep in mind, if you're standing and using your legs for stability, you are going to get more out of it total body wise, whereas seated, you'll be using specifically that muscle. So it really depends on the training that you're trying to do. If you're trying to reach a little bit of everything that day, I would definitely recommend staying standing and using those legs, using those glutes to help you perform those different shoulder exercises, for example. Whereas if you're specifically training shoulders, all you're doing is shoulders, you want to focus that work only on the shoulders, doing seated movements might be better for you if that's what you're going for. If you are standing during upper body strength training, I would suggest keeping your feet about hip width apart or a little bit wider, or I would suggest a staggered stance. So not a lunge, but one foot behind the other. Whatever makes you feel more balanced and more stable to be able to execute the movement and focus most of your attention on that muscle group being used. When it comes to lower body exercises, if your feet are more narrow, you're going to work more of your quads. If your toes are out, you're going to work more of your inner thigh and your glutes. So keep that in mind, depending on what you are trying to target in that specific day and moment and move. When it comes to your speed when you are lifting weights, you want to make sure that your mind is thinking about that muscle and you're getting that engagement at the top and the bottom of every move. So I would not suggest going super fast with your movements unless you're doing little pulses or lighter weights. Then I might encourage that. But in general, with your typical weight, I would suggest a nice, slow pause at the top, pause at the bottom to get the maximum benefits out of that move. And lastly, this is something I forgot to mention and it's super important. Fully extending when you're on a cable machine or when you're doing body weight exercises might be very challenging. So I would suggest when it comes to the cables or when it comes to body weight to perform the movement as best you can without breaking proper form and then coming out of it and releasing. So a good example for this would be a push-up. If you cannot get down all the way, go down as far as you can while keeping your back nice and flat and your hips down before you press back up, instead of collapsing all the way down and then pressing yourself back up. Definitely when it comes to the cables and body weight, keep that proper form and do the best you can extension-wise before you bring it back in, and keep your movements slow and controlled. All right, you guys, that is it for me today. I hope you learned some helpful tips or are at least more aware the next time you go in the gym of your form and ways to maximize your results with the equipment that you're using. Have a good one. Subscribe, share, like, do all the things, and I'll see you next time. Bye.